There are many problems that we've already done that have involved the mathematics of impulse. Today I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about some of those phenomena that occur out there in the real world that can be not mathematically explained by impulse per se, but just qualitatively explained by impulse. Why does this happen? Okay? The two general situations are what I call predetermined impulse and non-predetermined impulse. I'm not even sure that this is a word, non-predetermined, but we'll call it a non-predetermined impulse. A predetermined impulse occurs when an object is stopping. For instance, a car traveling down the road at 100 kilometers per hour has a certain momentum. That car will stop. That's certain. We don't know much about that car, but what we do know is that that car will stop. Maybe 5 minutes from now, maybe 5 seconds from now. It may come to a gradual stop at a stoplight. It may come to a crashing stop against a concrete wall. We don't know how it's going to stop, but we know it's going to stop, right? That much is certain. Because that car has a certain momentum, and because that car will at some point have zero momentum, it will experience a certain impulse that is fixed. That impulse will be the same no matter how it stops. We call that a predetermined impulse. When an object is stopping, the impulse will be the same no matter how the object comes to a stop. The car comes to a gradual stop at the stop sign. The car comes to a crashing stop against a concrete wall. The impulse is the same. I jump off the desk. I jump off the desk and bend my knees when I hit the floor. I jump off the desk and keep my legs straight. The impulse will be the same. Okay, a hockey puck is coming towards me. It hits my goalie pads. Okay? It's going to come to a stop. It hits my kneecap. It comes to a stop. The impulse of the puck is exactly the same. A basketball is coming towards me. I catch it by holding my elbows rigidly like this, or I cradle the basketball by pulling it back a little bit like this. The impulse of the ball will be the same. My head in a car crash hits the steering wheel of the car. My head hits the airbag that has inflated. The impulse of my head will be exactly the same. When an object stops, the impulse will be the same. The impulse is predetermined. Does that make sense? All right. So why is it then that my head hurts more when it hits the steering wheel than when it hits the airbag? Why is it that my knees hurt more when I keep them straight than when I bend them as I jump off the desk? Why is it that the puck hurts more when it hits my kneecap than when it hits goalie pads? Why is it that you cradle a basketball and you're able to control the basketball more that way than when you just keep your arms out straight and try to catch it that way? The impulse is the same. It's not impulse that injures or impulse that hurts. It's force. Let's say in a particular situation, the impulse is 10. 10 what? Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter what the units are. Just 10 somethings. Okay, let's say the time interval over which the object stops is 5. Tell me what the force is. Tell me what the force is in that situation. Easy math here. What is it? 2. 2 times 5 is 10, right? Okay, well, now that same object stops, but I increase the stopping time. I'm gradually stopping it at the stoplight. I bend my knees as I jump off the desk. I cradle the basketball. I've got my goalie pads on. Whatever. Okay? I'm increasing the stopping time. This time I'm going to increase the stopping time to, let's make it 10. Double the time that it takes to stop the object. What's the force become? What times 10 is 10? 1. If I double the stopping time, I decrease the force by a factor of 2. The idea behind everything that cushions an impact, this is from an airbag to you cradling the ball when it's coming towards you, to you bending your knees when you jump off a desk. The idea behind everything that cushions an impact is that the impulse will be the same, no matter how the object stops. You want to increase the time that it takes the object to stop, therefore decrease the force. Does that make sense? Okay, let's write down a little summary of that here. Let's say this little symbol just means that the impulse is going to be the same. The impulse is predetermined. The impulse is going to be the same. If I increase the stopping time, that's going to decrease the force. I'm going to circle these because I want you to recognize that the relationship here is between F and T. Neither one of these things affect delta P. Delta P is predetermined. Right? The car is traveling down the road. That's what determines what the impulse is going to be, not how it stops. Time affects force, force affects time. Neither one of them, when the object is stopping, affects impulse. You will get a question on predetermined impulse on your unit test. I promise you that. I know this because I've made up your unit test. You will likely, almost certainly, get a question on your diploma exam as well involving predetermined impulse. What I can't tell you is what that question is going to look like. I can't tell you that whether it's going to be somebody jumping off a desk and the question says, why do they bend their knees? Or why does the person cradle the basketball by bending their elbows back? Or why does the airbag protect you more than the steering wheel protects you? I don't know what that's going to look like. All I know is that you're going to get a question that asks you why an impact cushioning device cushions the impact. Here's the answer. Whether it's you bending your knees or you cradling the basketball or an airbag cradling your head. The answer is the impulse is the same no matter what. You're going to increase the stopping time and therefore decrease the force. Okay, that's the answer to whatever that question looks like. Does that make sense? All right. Now the other situation is when we have what I call a non-predetermined impulse. This is when an object is starting. Like for instance, a golf ball sitting on a tee. You hit who's a golfer here? Who's a golfer? Who golfs? Either, yeah, as long as you golf a little bit, you know what I'm talking about, right? A golf ball sitting on a tee. Hey, you want that impulse. The impulse of that golf ball is not predetermined, right? You want to give that golf ball as much impulse as possible. The more momentum, and therefore the more impulse you give it, the further the ball is going to go, right? So maximize the impulse. It's not predetermined at all. When you're starting an object, you usually want to maximize the impulse. How do you do that? How do you maximize the impulse of the golf ball sitting on the tee or the baseball coming towards you? By the way, the baseball coming towards you, you hit it, you're not starting it from rest, but you're starting it moving in an opposite direction, right? A hockey puck, you hit a slap shot on a hockey puck. You want to increase the impulse as much as possible. You're starting the object, not necessarily from rest, but you're starting it moving in another direction. How do you do that? What's one thing that you can do to maximize the impulse of that golf ball or the baseball or the hockey puck? Increase force. Hit it harder. Okay. I'm going to, if I increase the force, I'm going to increase the impulse. Okay, logically, right? Hit a golf ball harder, it goes further, right? But that's not the only factor. Okay, if strength was the only factor in golf skill, then wouldn't be much of a game, right? Strong people would do well, weak people wouldn't do well. Clearly that's a factor, but not the only one. And I wouldn't even suggest it's the most important one. What else do you have to be good at in golf besides being strong? What else do you have to be good at in baseball when you're swinging a bat besides being strong? What else do you have to be good at in hockey when you're shooting a puck besides being strong, which of course helps? What else do you have to be good at to maximize the impulse of that ball or the puck? You are so close. You don't want to reduce the time. You want to increase the time of contact. That's why we follow through. When you're hitting a baseball, you don't swing a bat like this and stop like this, right? What do? You swing a bat and you swing all the way around. You follow through on your swing, right? And the idea behind following through, the idea behind good form when you're swinging a baseball bat or swinging a golf club is that you increase the time of contact between the club or the bat and the ball, or between the stick and the puck. By increasing the time of contact, since delta t is directly related to delta p, you're going to increase the impulse. Here we would say that F affects impulse, so does delta P affect impulse. At the top one, when we're stopping an object, they don't affect each other, right? F and T affect one another, but not the impulse. When we're starting an object, both F and the time of contact affect the amount of impulse. Make sense? So we're dealing with objects that we're stopping. Impulse is predetermined. Usually you want to increase the force and increase the time and decrease the force, although occasionally you might want to decrease the time and therefore increase the force. Not usually though. When you're starting an object, you usually want to increase the impulse or maximize it, and you can do that in two ways. One, by increasing the force. Two, by increasing the impulse, because both force and, increasing the time. Because impulse is affected by both force and time. Make sense?